What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Ralph Hannah. And guys, happy Halloween to those that celebrate. We are recording here on the 31st of October. It could be trick or treat for two of the main contenders for the Clausura title, a big one, uh, a big clash happening this weekend. We'll talk about that in just a second. Obviously, we have had some action from Paraguayans abroad. Obviously, the Copa Libertadores and the Sudamericana finals are now set, one being played in Lima with Palmeiras taking on Flamengo, with Gustavo Gomez looking for another title. He could win his fourth title at Palmeiras. And of course, you got the Sudamericana final with Lanús and Mineiro. Got Junior Alonso on Mineiro, Ronaldo Jesus on Lanús, even though he hasn't been playing, but he's on that squad as well. And yeah, there's been some action as well with the Albir Roja. We obviously had the U17 women's team performing and, unfortunately finishing it off this week. But we have a new one starting soon with the U17 men's tournament happening in Qatar, and we'll talk about that in as well. But, Fede, I think the big one to really talk about is really what's going to happen this weekend. Cerro-Guarani, I feel like that is the talk of the town in terms of that the winner of that will really be in the pole position to go for the Clausura title. Obviously, we only have a couple of games left until the end of it, but that's a big clash that I think everyone in the country will be looking forward to.
Hi, Roberto. Hi, Rob. Hi to everyone listening to Guarani Vision. Great to be back for another one, like always, every week. And yeah, it's going to be, I would even say, the clash down of the season, of the year, because we didn't have Olympia in the fight. We didn't have Libertad in the fight. So it's been really between Guarani and the rest. It's been Cerro Porteño, the only team that's been up to it, especially ever since they got the new coach. You've kind of been feeling like this team can actually pull it out if they can beat Guarani, right? This is definitely going to be the game of the year, the game of the Clausura, because it could even decide the title. Guarani is in the driver's seat right now after beating Olympia last week. So I feel like they are the team to beat, right? So it's Cerro Porteño, the team that needs to catch up. They're going to be trying to look to take this team down, because as of right now, I feel that Guarani has the better options, has the best opportunities, even though this is the team that gets a championship every 10, 15 years. They're not accustomed to this situation. As of Cerro Porteño, they try to fight every year for the title. So I think they're in this opportunity also to close the year with the title, to give something to their fans that they've been expecting this the whole year, just to try to do something in the competitions. It could be the right way also to finish it up with a new coach, like I was saying, with the Uruguayan. So ever since he took over, I feel like there's a different chemistry in this team. I feel like players are playing also for their spot for next year. So there is a lot of things going on, Roberto. In the first division, it is up to these two teams. I don't think there's nobody else is going to get into this fight, but we've seen a lot of teams getting away from it. Nobody has deserved it more than Guarani and Cerro Porteño. So yeah, no doubt about it. It will be the game of the season, and I'm just waiting, rubbing my hands for it, because I believe it's going to be a really good game, guys.
It will be a really good game, and before we get into that, I wanted to obviously introduce Ralph because obviously, yeah, this is the game everyone's talking about. And, I feel like for Guarani's case, it kind of feels like destiny for them. Obviously, we're not picking them as winners as of yet, but like, they had been going through this sort of consistency throughout the entire, year, basically. Well, in this tournament, at least with Victor Bernal, etc., have been dealing with a lot of chaos in terms of a managerial point of view. They obviously have had from Diego Martinez to Jorge Alchuaro, from Jorge Bava. So you feel like Guarani is a bit more consistent as of now, but Cedro is still a team that still want to go and surprise, in this case of wanting to get rid of the leaders in this case. But it's gonna be a big clash, and like Fede has said, I'm really looking forward to it because I feel like there is so much that could be at stake after this weekend that whoever comes off as like the team in the right position to obviously win the title, I think that's going to say a lot about um, just what to expect moving forward to finish the year.
Yeah, that's right. Hi, everybody watching, listening. It's like you say. I mean, there's huge expectation on this game. All of this consistency, like you mentioned, from Guarani against this kind of tumultuous second half of the year, especially for Cerro, which has been, in a way, part of it is not just the league. They had the Copa Libertadores as well that they were focusing on, and that's partly why there's been these managerial changes, despite the fact they're towards the top of the league. But there's always been that feeling with Cerro that it's such a strong team that's not living up to expectations, whereas Guarani is a team that's overachieving at the moment. It's a smaller squad. They lost some of their players to Olimpia at the beginning of the season that you thought were going to be important, but they found ways, they found replacements in, like Maidana, the left back, or Ivan Ramirez, who's come in and done very well up front. And so it's an interesting kind of battle we get. And now I think there's been a big build up to this game because of what's happening with Cerro recently with the red cards, right? So Cerro come into this game with their opponents having suffered 8 red cards in their last 8 games. And so there's a lot of focus on refereeing, but also on, being the big team against the smaller team. Not that Guarani is a small team, but in relation to Cerro. It's like, is there favoritism? Do they want them to win the league? There's all that kind of chatter, I guess, happening. And so that just builds up, I suppose, the tension around this game, knowing that if Cerro were to win, they then equal points with Guarani and have a better head-to-head record. So there's a lot of pressure, I think, on both sides on this game going into Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really big, and I guess we'll go into that right now because obviously at the time of recording with both these two teams fighting it out for the Clausura title, we have obviously Guarani top of the table with 39 points, Cerro Porteño right below them with 36. Fede, you're right. I don't think there will be anyone to catch them because you got teams like Trinidad and Maya right behind them, but there's a 7-point gap between them and Cerro Porteño. So really, you have these two fighting it out, and yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go to you first. And how do you expect this game to go about? Because it has been such a inconsistent Cerro Porteño side, and they haven't been able to take advantage of Guarani when they have slipped up. So you have to feel like Guarani is the team to really beat. I mean, yes, it is being played at home, and it'll be played at Nueva Oya. Obviously, it is the last game of the year of the match day because all the other teams would have played beforehand. So I feel as if though right now, I think you have to give the advantage to Guarani at this point. At least that's what I personally think. I don't have a winner as of yet. I'm not predicting anything, but you have to side with all the factors going in that Guarani is the team that are probably going to feel the most confident going into this game.
Yeah, it could be one of those games, guys, where it could just be determined by the little details, right? I mean, I was listening to Raf, and yeah, there's been a lot of talks about the ref, about VAR, about players being sent off in these kind of matches, about players not being able to handle it, mentally, these kind of games. It happened to Nacional, for instance, this last game against Cerro Porteño, and in two teams that were having a very good season. In Nacional, I think it was probably their last opportunity to show that they were up to it and to see, even fight for the title, I would say it. But especially to win a big game like this one, right? And no, it was Cerro Porteño that did it. In a couple of minutes, they were able to score 2 goals, one after the other one. That's Cerro Porteño style. They've done it so many times. As Guarani, they suffered it back in 2021, the last time Cerro Porteño was champion. So, I mean, there is that also history between these two teams. There's a rivalry. There's Guarani feeling like it's our chance. It's now or never, even though it has been building up to this opportunity, right? Because we've always felt, I mean, I even remember what Ralph was saying at the beginning of the year. I mean, Guarani has a good coach. They have a good squad. We'll see if they can build up to be a good team. And it looks like they came together in this clausura, right? I mean, I thought they were kind of distracted with the whole Sudamericana during the whole first semester with Chiqui Arce, and that team kind of fell apart with a couple of players that left. Like Ralph mentioned, most of them went to Olympia, but they ended up bringing the right coach with Victor Bernay. He ended up picking the right players. They ended up, building a roster that has a lot of youth, but there's a lot of experienced players that do a lot of the dirty work there. Also, you have Juan Patiño, for instance, who's 35. He barely plays, but he's there top of the young defenders in the practices. He's one of the brains, no doubt about it, of what's going on. Fer is another one. Fernando Fernandez, a player that already played for Cerro Porteño. You got Erlis Rodriguez, who also had his opportunity in Cerro Porteño. Now he's playing with Guarani. So there could be that opportunity for a couple of players also to have, I don't know, some sort of revenge, even for Guarani, because of what I was saying back in 2021. Guarani fans feel like Cerro took it away from them at home, and they want that revenge, right? And for Cerro Porteño, it's been several years that they haven't been able to be champions. So there's a lot of stuff behind these players. There's going to be a lot of pressure in this game. So I think it's going to come down to the little details. Even more, it could be a more of a mental fight in there in the mud, and I want to see who's really up for it. I want to see if Cerro has learned from their mistakes, if they're ready for these kind of big games, or if it's really what I need, the team that's going to break through and pretty much confirm what I've seen this whole Clausura, that they've been the better team. I hope that they're up to it. I said it on the last episode. I'm going to root for them. I want them to be champions. And I think I want to see the best side. I want to see the best version of this team in these kind of matches. I want to see the young players stand out, and I want to see the experienced players make the difference also. So I think Guarani has the better opportunities, not just because they have a 3-point advantage, but because overall I've seen that this team has looked a lot better together, Ralph. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, they formed a very strong bond as a team, and I like what you touched on with the ex Cerro players. Also, Aldo Maiz is another one who used to play for Cerro. Well, he was signed for Cerro with this a lot of hope he could do what he's doing now at Guarani. He couldn't quite do it in that locker room, but maybe here at Guarani he's had a bit more freedom. But the mentality side, let's just touch on, because actually talking about Maiz, he went crazy at the end of the game against Olimpia, which is a very highly charged game. Guarani came out on top 3-1, but there were 3 sendings off, 2 for Olimpia, 1 for Guarani. The big one for Guarani is it was Maidana who got sent off, who's come back from the under-20s. They don't really have a left back that can fit in there. So it's going to be Thiago Servin, who's probably ends up playing there, but that's not his best position. And also, you mentioned Erlis Rodriguez. He can't actually play this game because he's still on loan from Cerro, so they're not going to let him play. So probably Diego Fernandez comes in, who's a good player in himself. So maybe that they're covered more. But you're starting to think that small squad and that mentality has maybe let them down, because the Maidana red card came at the very end of the game. They were already winning against Olimpia. On the flip side, Cerro, what we've seen at home is they've only lost 1 game in La Nueva Olla, which is where they're going to play, but they've drawn 4. And so that's been really the big issue for Cerro this season. They've actually had a better away. They've won more games away than they have at home. And there's this whole feeling that the pressure is coming from the fans, right? It's really the fans that have not been satisfied with all the big spending and then not seeing the results. And especially not seeing the goals. I mean, if you just look at the amount of goals scored in the league this season, I think Guarani has scored maybe 10 more, so 39 to 29 or something. And you wouldn't expect that. You would expect that Cerro team with Iturbe, Cecilio, Luisa Maria, Jonathan Torres, Araujo, Carrizo. I mean, look at all the names, right? You would expect them to be the top scorers. And so there's been a lot of frustration, I think, from home fans. So that's where it comes in on the Cerro side. And with Guarani, it's maybe that mentality of knowing I can't afford to make a mistake because we don't really have anybody to cover me in my position because I'm already, covering somebody else. So there will be a lot of tension. I mean, I think what we've seen with Bernay, he's always been a very smart coach. We haven't seen much from Bava yet. It's only been a few games, but he has definitely made Cerro more solid or structured, I suppose, organized. And so maybe Bernay won't get his way in terms of breaking them down as easy as he hopes, or catching them on the break, which he would probably do. So we might get I think we might end up getting a very tight game where it could be decided by that one mistake, that one set piece that's going to really make the difference because there's so much at stake. Ultimately, if it comes down to it, I think Guarani would be okay with a draw because they get a draw, everything's still in their hands. Cerro, no, they really have to win this because after this weekend's game, there's only 3 matches left. I mean, they don't have much time to make up the points because they don't know if Guarani are going to slip up or not. So I can see a very tight game, a lot of pressure. really could be decided maybe by a mistake more than anything else.
I was about to say, then who do you back of not just to get the result, but to make that mistake? I guess if you had to choose, who do you see out of the two teams making that mistake?
Well, of course, it could be the referee that makes the mistake, and then we'll be talking about this for a long
Oh,
time,
man.
giving a penalty that shouldn't, or the other way around. I don't know. I think I have a feeling. Honestly, I think it could end up being a draw, even though I said it's the mistake. I can see I can see Cerro being good enough to score, but I can also see them making those mistakes at the back, which we've seen even in the Clásico. I remember as well. I mean, that they didn't start very well at all the Clásico, and so I can see maybe it ends up being 1-1, but it's Cerro that maybe get a well taken goal, and it's Cerro that makes a mistake and Guarani get back into it.
Fede?
Yeah, I feel like the yellow cards, the red cards could be a big part in this game, right? A lot of people are expecting for a couple of players to be sent off after what we've been seeing in these last couple of games. So I don't know. I think that could end up helping one of the two teams. But yeah, I'm with Raf. I think it could either be a good tie for Guarani or it could be just a win for Cerro Porteño by just a goal. I don't see Guarani winning this match, even though after what I saw from Cerro Porteño in the Super Clásico, they can easily make a huge mistake like they did on that game, and it could get away from them even early, and that could put totally the pressure on them. And I can also see Guarani making it happen, but if I have to go with just the result, I think a tie. I think a one nil tie would be a 1-1 tie would be the result I'm gonna go with, or no goals at all. Just a really hard fought game, and I think it's gonna be a really tight one.
Ralph? What do you say?
I'll go 1-1. I think there will be goals, but yeah, 1-1.
I think we're in agreement as well for the first time in a long time. I'm also going for a 1-1. I just feel like I don't know if Cedro can have enough to really break through a really tight Guarani, and I think they understand that they need a draw. Like it's not going to be something that um is going to affect them too much because they know they are still in the right position. But yeah, I mean, look, if it does end into this 1-1 draw, is that your champion right there? Or is there something going on that you feel like someone can still slip up? Ralph, I'll go to you. Do you feel like this game confirms the champion?
Well, the thing about Guarani is they have the Copa Paraguay, and then they have to play Libertad. Or wait, yeah, it's gonna have to be that way. There's no other way. So that is kind of puts them in a bit of a difficult position where it's like, I have the Copa Paraguay semi-final, which, by the way, if I win that, I get into the Libertadores, or I have the league, which if I win it, I get into the Libertadores, which is the easier route in a way. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what kind of team they'll play there, but it's worth pointing out that they will have that and then have to face Libertad, which is in the last three games. I'm just looking. They have Libertad, General Caballero, Luqueño. Libertad's the only one that could, reasonably beat them. General Caballero basically relegated, or they already are relegated. Luqueño have nothing to play for. So I mean, it's really Libertad, the one that has the ability to take points off them. So yeah, I think if they get away with a tie here, then Guarani are all but champions. It would really take a capitulation for them not to be champions.
Fede?
Yeah, I'm expecting for Guarani to show some grit in these kind of games, right? Be ready for these kind of matches because these are the games that are going to decide the title against Cerro, against Libertad, and hopefully they can get the results there. I expect for this team to not let it get away from them. I don't expect them to slip away in these last couple of games, just from what I've seen so far. And I would be surprised if Cerro Porteño comes back really and takes it away in these last four games. But it's their opportunity. Cerro has this clash down, and if they can make it happen against Guarani, I think my speech is gonna change, and I'm gonna talk more and more about Cerro Porteño's chances. This is no doubt about it. Cerro Porteño's probably last chance to catch up.
And if they do blow this, Fede, I mean, what does this mean for Cedro as a whole? Because that would mean yet another year to be their fourth straight year without titles.
Yeah, I think this is just gonna feed up the talk about the elections and everything that's been moving around that whole situation heading up to January, right? Which is where everything's gonna happen, and this is obviously gonna decide the future of a lot of these players in this squad. A lot of fans are pointing fingers at a lot of these stars. I'm talking about Cecilio Dominguez, Iturbe, a lot of these players that need to make the difference. So I think moving forward, it could be a game changer for Cerro Porteño. I mean, I think half of this squad is playing for the opportunity to stay here and see if they can get fans by their side again. Because I haven't feel that situation with fans lately. I feel like they've gotten away from the team and they don't feel confident 100% with what's going on in Cerro Porteño. So they need to win a big game like this one. They've been waiting all year pretty much for a game like this. So it's now or never.
It really is now or never, isn't it, Ralph?
This is the moment. Like, yeah, this is a chance. It's these chances don't come around very often unless you are the Libertad and Olimpia Cerro. Well, really Libertad that are always up there usually. Um, it's you have to take it. When that moment comes, you've got to be there ready. I was just looking while you guys were talking as well. I was just looking at the one thing that's really interesting about Guarani, just to touch on quickly, because we talked about Gaston Oliveira, what an important goalkeeper he was for Olympia, right? When they won the Clausura, and uh, the kind of goalkeeper that almost lost, well, he got sent off in the key game against Cerro was Servio. Servio come back to Guarani in the Apertura, but now for this Clausura, Guarani's been playing with Aldo Perez, who's only 24. I was just looking at that, and we sometimes talk about national team and that kind of thing. That's a lot of pressure for a game like this as well, to have you're a very young goalkeeper in your first big moment. And I was just thinking, what happens if talking about penalties, sendings off? If anything was to happen to the goalkeeper, then I mean, that would be huge because they really don't have somebody on the bench with any experience. So I was just thinking about, we're talking so much about the small squad that Guarani has and how they've been overachieving. It's just, you look at every position and it's very similar in this very young team, even to the point of goalkeeper. So it's a big opportunity, but I suppose in a way it might not be the last opportunity for quite a few of these players that could go on to other things. I think whatever happens with Guarani, some of these players will get to move thanks to the seasons they've had, especially the younger players. And so there's been a great opportunity for them that they've taken advantage of to get themselves in this position.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens in this game as we look forward to it. Other tournaments that we will look forward to is obviously the U17 World Cup that happened for the boys that are happening also in a couple of days. But we'll talk about the women's team first. Obviously, before we go into, I do want to send a shout out to Flora Casas. Not one, for having a good tournament, and two, it was her birthday yesterday. So happy birthday to her. Hopefully, she had a really good experience over there in Morocco. And obviously, yeah, Ralph, the tournament ends against Mexico. They lost 1-0 in the round of 16 after a really good performance in the group stage. They went unbeaten, actually. They got the win against Zambia 2-1. They got the 4-1 win against New Zealand and the 1-1 draw against Japan. They almost got the win there, but if it wasn't for a penalty from Japan, that would have gave them the 3 points. And maybe we would have been talking about a different situation because Japan are now playing in the quarterfinals. They beat Colombia 4-0. But yeah, it ends for Paraguay. But, on a maiden win and a maiden knockout performance, I think you could say they exceeded all the expectations that they did.
Yeah, I agree. I think on balance, it's obviously there's a disappointment of going out, which we'll talk about the game, but on balance, it's an historic performance because they'd never even won a game before at the Under-17s World Cup in 3 attempts. They'd always gone out in the group stages. So not only did they get the win, they got through the group, they got to a knockout game for the first time. I think after the game, the coach was talking about, maybe they wanted a bit more because remember they came into this as the champions of South America. So there was this feeling that maybe they could do even more. And he said he was a bit disappointed with the way the game went in terms of they had a very clear idea of trying to draw in Mexico and hit balls over the top, because you have Claudia Martinez who's going to be able to like beat anybody for pace and get through. And he felt like in the first half they didn't really go to the game plan. So there was some kind of, I suppose, disappointment in that we were so close. And the game gets really close with that. It's Claudia Martinez, of course. Who else? Who has a great chance in it? Like it's like 84, 85 minutes where she's done that. She's got the one-on-one on the defender. Of course, she beats the defender because she's too good for any defender in that World Cup. And then she's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper just makes a great save with the kind of outstretched leg. And you just thought, oh, if that had gone in and we were going to penalties or extra time. I felt like Paraguay in that game against Mexico got better as it went on. They conceded early, right? I think 15, 16 minutes. But as the game went on, they got better and they looked like they could find a goal. They just eventually weren't able to get it. But overall, yeah, really, really good performance. I think there's such a good future for women's football in Paraguay. There's been so much work done, and this is in a way the lowest rank, because obviously you got U20s as well, and then the senior team. So this is just going to be able to help build on what we've been seeing, I suppose, for the last 4 or 5 years. It's been a long process to get here, but definitely, yeah, very, very positive. Despite losing a game, which maybe, like I was saying, with that last minute chance, maybe you felt you could have won or you could have done better, but it's an historic performance. And I think they're right back now, maybe as we're recording, to the airport with all the fans, and that's kind of cool experience for a lot of those girls that hadn't really, never traveled to somewhere like Morocco. So they get this very great experience, and now there's a hope that some of those can go pro as well, not just Claudia Martinez, who, as we know, is going to go on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, I want to see Claudia in November playing with the senior team, right? I think the senior team kind of needs her also. They lost both of their matches as they started their way to the next World Cup. They played Argentina and Venezuela, while the girls, this under 17th squad, was playing the World Cup. So I think she's definitely going to be the one that we're going to see in these upcoming games in the senior team. There could be a couple also of this squad that might get their opportunity at least to practice or get in there in the squad, because I do think that there is a couple of girls here that should already make that leap or have the chance at least. They were a very good team in the Sudamericano. That's why they were champions. And in this World Cup, you always saw a team that was always turning it around, right? I mean, we did it against New Zealand, we did it against Zambia, and in a certain moment against Mexico, like Ralph said, in that second half, you felt like, okay, this is possible. They can actually score, and we might take this to penalties. That's why it was kind of a frustrating elimination, disappointing game for me, because we weren't able to score or show our best stuff. But overall, I think there is a lot more positive than the negatives out of this tournament, especially because they are so young, and there's a lot of experience to take out of this. So hopefully they'll keep on building moving forward. I want to stand out several of these players, but I want to see them evolve. I want to see them come back now and finish the year with their local teams. We still have a calendar in the local women's league. We're gonna still have a competition. It's been pretty much stopped because of the World Cup and because of the national team, the senior national team, also playing these games. But they're gonna come back and they're gonna have action right before the end of the year. So it's gonna be fun to see them again. Like I said, overall, I think it's a positive tournament because of what they did in the group stage, but I wanted to see them get to the latter stages. I wanted to see them play against Italy, and I thought at a certain moment we were a better team than Mexico. We were really close. I was looking at the stats right here, and possession-wise, the amount of shots that we had at goal, I mean, it was a more of a tighter game than a lot of people actually thought. I think Paraguay left something in this tournament, and a lot of people were talking not just about Claudia's performance, but overall about what the team did in this World Cup.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is going to give a big impression back home, and obviously to a lot of the women's players who have been obviously influenced by this as well, because obviously we have the Nations League going on as well for the women's team. And who's to say a lot of those players won't be on that senior squad come next month or the next 2 games in that tournament. So, it's really sort of an upwards trajectory, you would say, on all of this. And another thing that's also going to be an upwards trajectory will be the U17 men's team that are right now playing in Qatar. Mariano Uglasic's team are playing this weekend. They actually start in a couple of days. Actually, they kick it off right here against Uzbekistan. And then they have a group obviously with Panama and the Republic of Ireland. Now, the way this group works is kind of different compared to the U17 World Cup because that was a group of 32 of 24 teams. This is a group team. This is a tournament with 48, so similar to the actual World Cup that we're going to get in the United States, Mexico, and Canada in a couple of months. So, you know, I think Paraguay really have a good chance of getting out of this group, Ralph. I was looking at some of the players in there. Obviously, I think the main one is someone like Pedro Villalba Libertad, obviously kind of the new gem of Paraguayan football, uh, so to say. But I think, just the way that the group works. I mean, yeah, obviously they are tough tests. You have three teams from different continents with Uzbekistan, Panama, and Republic of Ireland. But I think they do have a good chance of trying to just get out of this group, and just the way that the group is formatted, they're in a really good spot to do so.
Yeah, I think so. And also they've warmed up very well. They've played 3 friendlies so far in they call it the Dubai Challenge, but they're playing in Sharjah, which is a different city, but whatever. It's all close, I guess. And so they're in the United Arab Emirates at the moment. They played those 3 friendlies. They've won all three. The most recent against Ivory Coast 4-2. In the 2 previous ones, they against Indonesia and Uganda, Mauricio de Carvalho scored in both games. He's been like the 9 for this U17's team. I think we're looking at him for some of the goals. But they've also really built a very good defense. They have that's like a very strong defense in terms of just physically, athletically, which sometimes we've seen at U17's. Paraguay's found it harder to compete when they get outside of South America. So you mentioned different continents. I mean, usually when they play against, for example, European teams, they've sometimes found it harder. But at the moment, it looks like a team that's really well structured, well organized, going in with these 3 wins from the friendlies. So you kind of feel there's something in there they can do. The creativity is definitely from Villalba, like you mentioned, Pedro Villalba, who's already played for Libertad. I think he debuted way back when he was like 15 or something. So he's a very big talent. But there's just a few players all over the field that are going to be interesting to watch. Bouding I think he's from Nacional. He scored a couple of goals in the warm-ups. He plays on the other wing usually. So there's going to be a lot to watch. Oh, you got the 10 from Cerro, right? Carlos Franco. So there's a lot of players with a bit of experience already at senior level, which is huge to go into U17's tournament and having played senior football. But also, I just think it seems to be Uglisic has them very organized and really looks like a team that could do something at the World Cup, which is exciting.
Yeah, and it's a very different from that under 20s team, right? Or that squad that we saw recently with a lot of teams that were with a lot of players that were playing in Argentina. In this squad that Mariano Uglasich built up for this World Cup, most of these guys are still in the local league. I think Leo Cristaldo is the only one that plays abroad. He plays for Vélez of Argentina. There were a couple of more players in that under 15s that was South American champions, right? The team that a year ago made a really good impression under this same coach. This is pretty much the same squad with just a couple of different players, but I'm happy to see them build as a team. I'm really happy for these 3 good results in the preview. This builds up character. This gives you, that confidence going into the tournament. Like, okay, we can do something in these first games. There's no team that really scares you in these first couple of matches in the group stage. So I think it could be the right way to start off this tournament. I'm going to look into a lot of these players, the way that they develop in this kind of tournament. Alan Ledesma is one of them. He's been getting opportunities also in first division ever since Ever Almeida took over in Olympia. He gave him the chance to even start a couple of games as one of the center midfields. This is a very strong player. He reminds me a bit of Diego Gomez when he was kind of starting out physically. I don't know if technically he's that good, but physically he does make a difference. You can feel his presence in midfield. He's really good getting the ball back. I want to see him kind of get a couple of opportunities also going forward. But I do think that responsibility is going to go more by Carlos Franco, who you guys mentioned from Cerro Porteño, Josias Camps of Nacional, maybe. And the starting forwards, yeah, it's been Jose Buring and Mauricio de Carvalho. These guys have been playing together for quite a while now. Milan Freitas is also another name that usually comes on, another player from Olympia. I think these are going to be the three names that we're going to go around with obviously with Pedro Villalba playing as one of the guys on the side. So I think they have a really good squad. I don't think there's one player that really stands out of the rest. I'm not. Hopefully it is the way you said it, Roberto. Hopefully there's a jewel in here. Hopefully it is Pedro Villalba or another player breaking through in this tournament. I mean, this could be the big opportunity. It is a World Cup, and there's a lot of scouts. There's going to be a lot of eyes in this tournament and these players. So it could be the huge opportunity also for them to make a leap into a European team. Why
Yeah,
not?
that's right. I actually do wanted to close on that one and go to Ralph because I think, yeah, because of the age that they're in, and obviously players can't move to like Europe if they are outside of Europe abroad to sign professional contracts. This is the right time to make a really good impression to a lot of scouts and to those that are involved at different clubs around the world.
Yeah, that's right. This tournament is often where the player first gets into contact with the European clubs, and they basically sign them up on a pre or they pre-agree for when they turn 18. So it's a huge moment for a lot of them, like we were talking about, that have had some experience in first team football, so they're almost there, ready to go. And then there could always be, yeah, the gem that shows up that surprises everybody. It could be like Josias Camps from Nacional, I think he is as well. That he's done very well and in some of the warm-up games. So you could get a surprise that suddenly finds their way in Inter Milan, like happened to Rodrigo Alborno, for example. Like a long time ago, he got scouted at one of these tournaments, gets signed up, goes to Inter Milan. Obviously didn't work out, but this is at this level, it can also be very difficult, right, to gauge how they'll step up. One thing we haven't mentioned as well, which I wanted to touch on, is don't forget we got Thiago Vera and Manuel Cáceres playing together. They're the sons of Enrique Vera and Topo Cáceres, who of course played together at the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. So we've come full circle now that the legends of South Africa's sons are now playing at a World Cup, while of course Roque Santa Cruz and Taquara still play Primera, which is kind of crazy to think how that's all happening. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on those two, because I think it's pretty cool that they've had that, they're from those families that have had such a rich history in Paraguayan football.
You're just trying to make us feel old, man. That's where you're getting at from here. But yeah, obviously it will be very exciting to see what happens there. We'll obviously keep an eye on it as we always do here on Guarani Vision. Obviously, the big Guarani Cerro clash is the one to watch out for, and we'll talk about that as always, as we always do here, as we close out another great episode for myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hannah. Thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.